Do you believe that Britain's military is overstretched? This is the thing I like to talk about, as lately in March, more so now, Britain seems to be all over the place with their military personnel so small. Do you think that Britain is vulnerable? And I think, in a way, it kind of is. Now, back on the 2nd of March, um, one of the British military air bases was attacked by a drone in Cyprus. Without any Royal Naval covering, leads the British government to question everything about itself, especially where do we go from here and how do we deal with problem nations like Iran. Britain, at one point during its heyday, had the biggest navy in the world, and before the First World War, Britain's by law, Britain's Royal Navy needs to be bigger than the two second largest navies combined. Naturally, over the years, Royal Navy ships have declined in size because of, well, especially after the Second World War, during the Cold War, it was the US Navy that was doing a lot better. The Royal Navy was reduced down to the second largest navy. Naturally, because after the war, America, with its finances, was a lot better, and Britain, well, we were struggling because it drained so much resources from us. It really did, financially and raw materials as well. And it's the fall of the British Empire. But for a while, even right up to the Falklands, our navy wasn't really a bad size. During the Falklands War, I think from my books I remember reading, we had roughly 100 ships. Now we've got much less than that. We've even got, in the past 30 years, more admirals than we do of Royal Naval ships. Not only that, we are in a very difficult position because, especially with the Army as well and the Air Force, they've all shrunk in size in the past 30 years. And with what's going on with, obviously, with the Russians and with Ukraine and Poland, and we need to keep a close eye on that situation. And also with, let's face it, most of our military equipment now, it needs a bit of an update. There is nothing wrong with the British military's training. It is really, really good. It does need adapting. It needs growth and development. Of course it does. It always does. You know, that's the whole point of warfare, isn't it? You always have to grow and develop and change. Naturally, you do. I mean, for a while, we had the bullpup rifle, the SA-80. When the Mark 1 came out, it was terrible. It was atrocious. It was the most useless rifle we've ever produced. In the late 80s, early 90s, and especially during the first Gulf War, it was just awful in the desert. A lot of the veterans from the 2003 conflict have openly admitted it just jammed up. It was completely atrocious. Naturally, the rifle, and with engineers, they've improved the design, improved what needs is doing, because it just kept jamming. It just kept jamming. It was just atrocious. But when the Mark III came out, it's blooming brilliant. It really was. Before then, you had the SLR rifle during the Falklands War, and it was amazing. It was a superior weapon than the American M16 for Vietnam, because that kept jamming because of the terrain and the temperature conditions of Vietnam. And the Australian Army used the SLR, and it was brilliant. And again, there's swings and roundabouts, growth and development. Even now, we are in a difficult position because we're trying to replace our old Warriors with the Ajax, and the Ajax is awful. It's a waste of money, a waste of time, waste of resources. It's atrocious compared to the Boxer, the British Boxer, which we've imported from Germany, is actually a very good off-the-shelves vehicle. But not only that, you've got to think of equipment, training, personnel, and how small it is in Britain. You've also got to think of the government that we have now and public opinion. Because of what happened with 2001's conflict and the 2003 conflict, the mindset of the British public is not in favourable with the British military. It really isn't. And, excuse me, it seems to go on downhill. The last time we were proud to defending British personnel was in the Falklands War. We were proud to be British back in 1982. I still remember seeing footage from documentaries of when the Canberra and the Queen Elizabeth, both those ships came back home into Southampton. People were cheering, waving British flags and so forth, hugging their loved ones and so forth. And we were proud to be British. We were really proud with our military. And now, especially in 2026, like literally now, especially with the two conflicts from 2001 and the 2003, we seem to be ashamed of what we do. Public opinion isn't in favour of military expenditure. It really isn't. We're not interested on improving equipment to British troops. We're not interested of improving our housing. Public opinion's completely changed. It almost feels like the same with the Americans when they came back home from Vietnam after the fall of Saigon. And a lot of American civilians were ashamed of their military. And we come into the same sort of way. Also, it doesn't help with our government. It wasn't that long ago. Our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, completely ruined the British SAS. He even threatened to sue the SAS, British Special Forces, Special Air Service, for every single operation they've done from the 1980s, the Irish Troubles, right up to the Afghanistan and Iraq conflicts. He threatened to sue every single operation, which makes every single new recruitment person who really wants to go down the SAS route to question about it, because how can you go into a position of behind enemy lines, covert operations, or even just conflict as a whole, and you're going to be sued and questioned by every single human rights lawyer? It's ridiculous. You can't literally do anything. You can have boots on the ground, which he promised to put boots in the ground with Ukraine and possibly with Iran, but the poor British personnel, the riflemen on the ground of the section, they're like, well, what can we do? We can't do anything, because if we do anything, even to defend ourselves, we end up getting sued by our own government. It just seems like, why? What's the point? It really does baffle me. And to send personnel off to conflicts, it is devastating for the families they leave behind. It naturally is. You lose your loved ones. The possibility of your husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, son or daughter might not be coming home. It is really devastating. And my heart and soul goes out to all those personnel within the British Armed Forces, because it is traumatic when you lose somebody. It really is. There's no words. I can't describe it, honestly, and I hope I never will find out. But we're in a situation that our Prime Minister wants to be involved with everything, but doesn't want to support the troops and doesn't want to better equip them. There isn't the public opinion at all. And then you've got a president in the US who wanted to pull out of NATO, right? He wanted to pull out of NATO, didn't want anything to do with the European countries, cut back on funding with the Ukrainian war. They say, you're on your own. So what? We're not interested in you. You know, America first, America first, America first. And then what did he do? Goes into Venezuela, does a regime change there. Good or bad, we don't know. It's early days. He was criticising all of Europe. He criticised Britain's involvement with Afghanistan and Iraq. We did nothing, apparently. America did all the work. We did nothing. Even though closer to, I think it's like 230 troops have died during the conflicts of Iraq alone. I could be wrong, so I do apologise. But he criticised and said, we've done nothing, America shouldn't do anything with Europe. And then he's demanding our air bases. And now we've got aeroplanes, American bombers crossing Europe and in parts of the UK as well, apart from Spain, who've just refused. So the US government and the president of his time actually says that Europe did nothing. Europe is lazy, America does all the work, and now he is demanding air bases for his campaign in Iran. And you're like, how can you bash Europe and say that we don't need Europe, we don't need their military, we don't need NATO, and then suddenly you go, right, we want your air bases, we want your involvement in Iran. You just insulted most of Europe, and you do that, and threaten to annex Greenland as well, upsetting people of Denmark, upsetting the people of Greenland, naturally, you know, of world security, and creating your own version of the UN with the Board of Peace, which is still questionable in its own right. But that's America, that's a whole different subject. Now, what do we do in the UK? There isn't enough personnel to be involved with two situations in two theatres, two completely different theatres, one in Europe and one in the Middle East. We had a difficult situation before with Afghanistan and Iraq, and our personnel were extremely overstretched. And this was thanks to Tony Blair. He completely whittled down our capabilities during the last Labour government, overstretched us like crazy and drained all of the resources. And what did it achieve? Nothing, really. It really didn't achieve anything. Iraq's lost a change of government, but it's a complete mess. And Afghanistan, well, just look at it now. It's ridiculous. I mean, we haven't achieved anything, which is devastating. So where do we go from here? I mean, warfare has changed a lot, and drones are now being used a lot, and especially motored like fast gunboats in the Straits of the Gulf are used a hell of a lot more. And we used to have a tactic of how to counter those during the war, which was the E-boats from the Germans, and we had our own motor torpedo boats. Now we barely got anything there. I mean, what do we do? I mean, our navy is so overstretched. There's hardly enough warships to cover anything. Most of them are in refit. Our carriers are less than half the capability of the Joint Strike Fighters. Eurofighters, we can barely have 4, 6 at one time in the Middle East. And the personnel size, our British personnel for infantry, for example, is, well, you'd be lucky to get 100,000 personnel. It is that shrunk. It is so small. Even the recruitment adverts for the UK for joining the British military are a joke. A lot of them now are ridiculously a joke. Probably poorly made adverts to privatising most of the recruitment, and it's too much bureaucracy, so you lose a lot of potential people from joining the military into civil life. And the British military, the army, the navy, and the air force, they have a lot to offer. They have a lot of potential to give to young people with careers and qualifications. There's a lot to be had in joining the military. A lot of my friends, my closest friends, who are ex personnel, ex forces, they all tell me how much life skills they've had thanks for joining the army and the navy and the air force, and they do lead good, successful lives. They really do. At the same time, they do worry why we have shrunken so badly. So where do we go from here? We've got a government that wants to sue our military. You've got 4 of the best generals in the country actually saying, and wrote a letter, we do not have confidence in Keir Starmer and our government. And that's shocking. And Starmer wants to be involved with everything, but doesn't want to actually finance it or have the public opinion to do anything about it. And we're a country of diverers, really. We're a complete country of diverers, which loves to protest, and we have a lot of protests. There's like one every month in Trafalgar Square of people who do not have a clue what life is really like in hospitable countries with a government and a regime that is anti-human rights, anti-women's rights, anti-LGBT rights, but supports those countries regardless. And we hear a lot of fake media, like from people like George Galloway, even the people from the Green Party are anti-British military and want to disband it entirely. Even the people in the far left in this country, and the UK is the only country that moves more to the extreme left, whilst the rest of Europe are more into the right because they're worried about their borders and protection, whereas Britain is completely not interested in that and is happy to get rid of our military entirely because there isn't the public demand or opinion of it, which is devastating. So where do we go from here? When you try and build up your defences in like Cyprus and Qatar and so forth, and there isn't a public opinion for it, what do you do? What can you do? And I feel so sorry for the poor people within the British military, within the Army, Air Force and Navy. If you go into those situations, there's a good chance that you will be sued, you will be judged, you will be criticised, and there will be people within your own country, like in London or Birmingham, when half the people there will spread misinformation about how evil Britain is, or even your potential neighbour could like criticise you and even sell you out to hostile nations. There's a good chance that could happen. But where do we go from here? What can Britain do to help with improving infrastructure or even in recruitment? It is difficult. I don't know where we go from here. Should Britain be involved with the whole thing with Iran? Should it just be Israel and the US? Well, yeah, you decide, you choose. It's up to you. Let me know in the comments below. I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts and your minds. Take care, all the best. Bye.